Good morning. We are back. We were last week. What a schedule! Everything happening at SEC Media Days in Atlanta. We had to be there. So Brendan and I were putting out stuff nonstop all day. Rob Brown back here in Memphis. Brendan Martin in Ocala. Lot to cover today. Take a picture with your cell phone of the QR code. We're live on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. And our town of the day, Brendan, Weatherford, Texas, in Parker County. Yeah, it's right outside of Dallas, about 31,000. Now, what it's known for, Weatherford, is the town in the popular TV show Landman with Billy Bob Thornton. And Jimmy McDavid is watching right now out there. One of my friends from high school, played for Texas, said that mom and the daughter, he goes, there are women like that everywhere out here in Weatherford, Texas. Population of over 31,000, which is certain.
What are you trying to say? Women like what, Rob? What are you?
Well, that lovely lady, the mom, and her, she was quite a lady, but she still is. She's still
a freaking train wreck.
She's a train wreck. But look, a lot to cover today. Coach Ellis Johnson, right now coming in from Winsboro, South Carolina. Brad Logan Media Network, covers all things Ole Miss and Mississippi in the SEC. And David Bartoo of College Football Matrix checks in from the mountains of Oregon, about 40 miles outside of Portland. So let's go ahead and get cranked up. Coach Johnson, I want you to meet Brad Logan. Brad's one of the best reporters. He's part of what they do, like an ESPN game day, but it's better because they know more about Ole Miss than anybody. Right there in the Grove on Saturdays, and works non-stop putting out great content. Brad, Coach Ellis Johnson, longtime coach in the SEC, wanted to introduce y'all, and we'll get started talking some football if that's something y'all want to talk about.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Brad, Coach and I talked a lot Friday when I was driving back from Birmingham and Atlanta. What were your main takeaways other than Lane Kiffin? I've always liked Lane Kiffin. Even my Tennessee friends won't let go of the 1 year in Knoxville. But he's not that I'm an expert on maturity or anything, but he's really grown to love Oxford. I go down there 3 or 4 times a month, it seems. I'm down there for something. It's a special place. Talk about that relationship and how that's transcended into a winning culture. 3 of the 4 top 12 finishes in the last 55 years have happened under Kiffin.
Yeah, what you've seen at Ole Miss has been a resurgence like they've never had before. You have to go back to the early 1960s before you can see the type of success that Ole Miss is having right now, and it's, of course, under head coach Lane Kiffin. You know, what I found interesting was the opening statement that Lane made, and it was basically 5 to 10 minutes about how much Oxford has meant to him and his family. It wasn't about the offensive line. It wasn't about last year's game against Florida. It wasn't about why Georgia should be ranked ahead of Texas or anything about the SEC. It was simply about what Oxford has meant to him, what Oxford means to his family, having his family in Oxford. You know, this is he's been there much longer than many people thought, and that's me included. But what he's done at Ole Miss is completely brought back a program that has been hasn't been here since Coach Johnny Vaught, like I said, in the late 1950s, early 1960s, winning multiple 10 games a couple years in a row, and it's been interesting to watch to see how he's been at the forefront of the transfer portal, the way he's been able to recruit the portal, and then the way he recruits in high school, where it really doesn't crank up until the season starts. Ole Miss fans have learned not to panic when you look, although Ole Miss is ranked, in the 20s, the late 20s now in many different services. They learn not to look at the rankings now, and they learn that most of the recruiting is going to come down the road. At the end of the day, I think for Ole Miss, they've been the benefit of the schedule laid before them the last couple of years, and this year the schedule is much. Once again, it's in the favor of Ole Miss when you look at home games versus away games. You look at the non-conference games. So I think to answer your question, I thought it was interesting that he opened his statement at SEC Media Day by being very humble, something we haven't seen in the past. We'll get to the dig to Hugh Freeze in a minute. But I thought he was very humble and very appreciative of what Oxford's done for him, and he has grown in more ways than one. Talking about the passing of his dad and then the passing of his mom not long ago, I think that's definitely played a part in all this as well.
Coach, hearing that, he did. He lost his mom and dad in the last year. The way he's doing it, the portal, high school, and all. Did you think it would work?
Well, sometimes you don't know until it's already done. And like Florida State, they had a great year 2 years ago using the portal. Then all of a sudden last year it blew up on them. We all know one of the most critical things is trying to gel a football team with all these new faces coming in and out. Yeah. And so far he's done a masterful job. I think the fact that he's been in the NFL before, got some guys on the staff that have too. I'm very close to a guy on the staff, Joe Judge, who used to coach for Coach Saban, then went up and was, of course, with Belichick up at New England. And then he got the New York Giants job. And Joe's got a wealth of experience on college and pro level. He initially did a lot of the front office work, if you will, when they started trying to figure out these NILs and portals and all this thing about how you're going to spread the money. And Joe kind of had an insight on it, and of course Lane does too. But it helped him a lot. And I talked to Joe one time about it. And he just said he felt like he was almost a general manager. Now everybody's hiring general managers. Yeah. But Lane's done an unbelievable job over there. I do think sometimes people don't realize how much more powerful Ole Miss is than Mississippi State, financially and politically. And I've been at the other school, and it is tough. Also been at Southern Miss, and they own that state. The biggest problem Ole Miss has is just fighting off LSU and Alabama and those schools from coming in, trying to get those players. But he's done a great job, and to me, he's one of the best offensive coaches in the game.
Yeah. Brad, and along that line, Lane Kiffin's ability to go find quarterbacks. Let's talk about the quarterback room and Austin Simmons' development and how he's helping out the rest of the team. Everybody remembers the one series against Georgia, but you're there every day.
Yeah, I think a lot of it started when people saw Matt Corral. And when Matt Corral transferred in under Luke, and then when he got hurt against Auburn, he came out with the ankle banged up, and it was almost like Ole Miss fans were like, that's my quarterback. And then we proceed to see what he does on the road against Tennessee, and of course, the following year he has a big year. And then Ole Miss goes to the portal and gets Jackson Dart, and that's when things really shot up. Now, Corral's still playing in the professional ranks now, in the USFL, whatever it's called now. But, of course, Jackson Dart, you see what he's doing now, and it will be interesting to follow him as he goes to the New York Giants and plays quarterback. I think there's a familiarity there. Lane talked about in the electronic media room when he talked about how it's enjoyable to watch the quarterbacks evolve. And he talks about how when the parents come in for recruiting, and I think it was me or someone asked about social media, and then he basically said, hey, when they come in and we start talking to parents and we start talking to players, they say, yeah, it's kind of like we already know you because of the social media aspect about how open he is on social media, which, by the way, social media Lane versus press conference Lane is two different people. But I think having that familiarity there has helped in recruiting, specific quarterback recruiting. But I think just knowing how to pinpoint certain players, understanding who's in the portal, who may be in the portal, who they're going into high school recruiting, who they're looking at there. But having players, and Coach made mention of someone on the staff who is incredible, and that's Joe Judge. Having people like that on staff, Zach Arnett, who's moved on, was on staff, was terrific last year. Ole Miss has a number of players. And real quick, before I finish my statement there, I think Coach made a good point about general managers. I think we're seeing that all across the landscape of college football. Ole Miss, once again, was on the front end of that as well. And so one thing that Lane has been able to do is be two steps ahead. When Kelvin Bolden headed off to LSU, and then Ole Miss lost another staff member to the Atlanta Falcons, the hire's not been made. but you can be assured that Lane Kiffin has 2 steps ahead. He knows exactly the direction he wants to go. But I think to answer your question, to sum up that about quarterbacks is just the evaluation process, not only with Lane, but with his staff, with people like Joe Judge.
Yeah.
And you're not really necessarily looking for a system quarterback, but you're definitely looking for someone that's going to run that Ole Miss type offense. Charlie Weiss has done a great job overseeing that, but it's always been kind of Lane's offense, and being able to have the nice mixture of a running quarterback with a throwing quarterback. And we saw Jackson his junior year run a whole lot more than his senior year, and I think a lot of that was because of injury or trying not to get injured.
Yeah.
But I think, you have those system somewhat quarterbacks, and they've done a really good job the last couple of years plug and placing.
Coach, talk about Pete Golding. Yeah.
Brad, we were talking about Lane on social media. He's a little bit of a troll, and what people don't understand, it's not a bad thing. It's just kind of like a persona. I think that he likes to play around online, likes to have fun with it.
Yep.
It's not necessarily what the kind of person he is at a press conference is what you're saying, Brad. Just to clarify.
Oh yeah, it's not even close. Lane much more closed off with us, and that's understandable. He's very guarded. He's very. I think someone mentioned he's very Nick Saban-ish to the media. He talks to his players through the media. He knows exactly how to navigate the media. He knows exactly what not to say, more importantly than what to say.
Yeah.
But social media, I think, is much more of who Lane is. We've seen a couple of interviews that he's done with non-local media, with in many ways Theo Vaughn, the comedian. He's done some the pivot with Ryan Clark. So he's done some interviews outside of the local media. We kind of got to see him personally a little bit, but do not see Lane at all personally in press conferences for sure.
Rob, I tell you, y'all talking about the quarterback thing. He does a great job of identifying and bringing in somebody who does fit his system. But as far as a quarterback developer, I think that's a strong suit. Yeah. My memory goes back. He was at Tennessee only 1 year. I was at South Carolina. It was probably of the 4 years, it was our third best defense. It wasn't real good, but he inherited a quarterback, and they were really good on offense. He didn't pick the guy. He had to coach the guy. Yeah. The guy that really stands out in my mind was the year at Alabama when he took Blake Sims, who had not hardly played much quarterback at Alabama. And, I think coming into our Auburn game at the end of the year, he'd done some like 7 games without an interception or whatever. But he's the best quarterback teacher, I think. I think that's his strength, if you want to know the truth.
Yeah, Brad, along the line, you of the quarterbacks he's had so far, is Jackson Dart his best, in your opinion?
I think the job that he's done with Jackson Dart right now is the best. I think it'll be interesting to see how Austin Simmons follows, because I think Austin Simmons is much more a moldable piece of clay than Dart was. And what I mean by that, I don't mean that Austin's going to be any better than Jackson. Yeah. I just believe he's rawer. He may have a little different skill set. So it'll be interesting to see what Charlie, Joe Judge, Lane Kiffin does with Austin Simmons this year. How much he runs versus how much he throws. He's absolutely going to be a running threat, but are they going to want to try to protect him? You look at Ole Miss's offensive depth chart or their offensive quarterback room, and they went to the portal and got Trinidad Chambliss, a junior transfer. They've already got A.J. Maddox, who's been dealing with an injury. So the depth is not great at quarterback, but there is some depth there with Trinidad Chambliss. And I have been told that Chambliss looks so good in workouts that they might have some sort of a package for him. So I do think that Dart is the best I've seen, although Coach makes a great point about Blake Sims. I think as a head coach at Ole Miss, there's without question Jackson Dart has been good, but you'll have people that will fight you that Matt Corral, cemented his legacy with a couple of different particular games at Ole Miss. And I think that Tennessee game was one that will live forever. That's the golf ball game. Yeah. And so, but you look at what he did with Jackson Dart, who transferred in from Utah or BYU, wherever it was, USC. He started out in the state
out Utah. West.
Yeah, he was good, man. He was really good, and he made some decisions in the latter part of the year against Florida, and then obviously early on against Kentucky and then LSU. But I think he'll go down as one of the best to ever wear the uniform. But it'll be interesting to see what Lane does with Austin Simmons going forward.
Yeah. And along the line of what Coach said, in 14, he took Blake Sims, who'd been a running back, quarterback, or back to a quarterback out of Gainesville, Georgia. But then he took Jacob Coker, who transferred back from Florida State, played at St. Paul's in Mobile. He won it with him. And in 16, he won it with a true freshman who came in January, Jalen Hurts. 3 years in a row, wins the SEC with a different quarterback. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, and Coach, I'd love your thoughts on this. You talk about Lane as an offensive coach and as a quarterback coach. I'd love your thoughts on what you think he's done as an overall head coach with coordinators Charlie Weiss Jr. and then, of course, Pete Golding, the defensive coordinator, who, as you well know, cut his teeth under Nick Saban.
Yeah, I think sometimes coaches like Lane or Coach Spurrier, some of the offensive guys that really know how to light it up on offense, and people think they don't care about defense, and it could be anything further from the truth. And I don't know about Lane. I've never worked for him, but I know like Coach Spurrier was actually like a research manual for me. I would see a situation in a game, and I'd go in and say, what do you think about this? What would you not want to see here? What would you really hope somebody doesn't run in this situation? And most of the time, it would be something that was not the way I would have approached it, because they just see it from a different lens. And again, not having worked for him, I can't say for sure, but I can just tell his knowledge of the game is not just limited to offense or quarterbacks. He's just got a great feel for it all.
Yeah, Brad, we got the chance to talk. I was there all week at Media Days talking to a lot of players, and you did too. I was impressed with John Mateer coming in at Oklahoma. And Jim Nagy was there, and I didn't get a chance to talk to him, but he's the GM at Oklahoma. It looks like a lot of schools tried to upgrade, but guys like Lane Kiffin, I'm with Coach. People forget how much time they probably spend in the backfield in practice with the defense, watching and learning how to attack an offense. You're there at practice every day. The defensive line and Pete Golding, he's been having 8 to 10 trustable defensive linemen, SEC caliber. Is that going to be the case this year?
Well, we heard from Pete Golding in a fireside chat or an interview he did, and forgive me, I forget the podcast, but I thought it was really good. And different people surrounding Pete Golding has said that he does not think there'll be a step back for the Ole Miss defense. I find that incredibly hard to believe because of the talent that went off to the NFL with Walter Nolan, J.J. Pegues, Jared Ivey, Princely Umami-Ellen. I mean, the list goes on. And, you look at the defense now, they've got Princewell Umami-Ellen, who is going to be playing the linebacker position. Deshaun Womack, the transfer out of LSU. But the defensive front, I mean, you've got names like Xavier Harris, Jamarius Brown, players like Will Eccles, Cam Franklin, Jeffrey Rush, Cameron Beavers are all going to have to step up and take some really big roles. Now, they've had some snaps. They've been limited because they couldn't break through to that incredible defensive front that Ole Miss had last year. Answer your question, I think Pete Golding's been really good for Ole Miss. I think Ole Miss fans have a reason to believe him and a reason to trust him until they hear otherwise. I mean, he has been as good. Someone asked me, when's the last defense coordinator had at Ole Miss better than Pete Golding? And I think you have to go back maybe to 1992, when Jolie Dunn had the number one defense in the country.
Yeah.
Other than that, I don't know if anyone has been quote unquote better than Pete Golding. Real quick, I want to say something about Oklahoma before we get out of here.
Yeah.
I was told that Oklahoma very much could be the team in the weeds. And Mateer, we've heard about him. I was with you, Rob. I was very impressed with him.
Very much.
I'm not ready to crown them SEC champions by any stretch, but I don't know that enough people are talking about Oklahoma. Yeah. And my thing, and what I've said all along, is Ole Miss's schedule. If you look when they open with Georgia State, the key for me for Ole Miss having a good season versus a great season is going to be Saturday, October 25th, when Ole Miss goes on the road to face Oklahoma. That's following up a road trip to Georgia. Now, if chalk holds, Ole Miss should be underdogs in 2 games, probably LSU at home and and then Georgia on the road. They could be an underdog at Norman, depending on where that game is. So that may be 3. I've said all along the over/under's 8.5 for Ole Miss. I'm going 9-3, 10-2 if they can win on the road at Oklahoma. I think LSU and Georgia is going to be difficult. And Oklahoma's a team to where I think they have circled that Ole Miss game, and why do I think that's important to them? Because I think their back's against the wall from a coaching standpoint, from a playing standpoint. I think Mateer's going to be good. I don't know that I'm going all Chris Dorian. He's going to win the Heisman, but I think he's going to be good. I think that's a game that Oklahoma feels like they have to have. It's an SEC team at home. There's going to be a great crowd. It's an early game in Norman, and so I think that's a huge game for Oklahoma. Back to your original point. I think Pete Golding's been great, and I think there will be a drop-off. May not be as precipitous as I think, but on paper, it's pretty big.
Yeah, it is. And I got a chance to talk to a lot of Oklahoma people. Brandon Drum, OU insider, he knows Jackson Arnold really well. And I got to talk to Jackson a good bit there with him because they're very close. The quarterback position is so critical. And when you have a head coach like Lane Kiffin, who's so good at developing the quarterbacks and understands all parts of the game, it makes a huge difference. All right, before you go, let people know how they can follow all the content that you're putting out, and let them know also where the location is exactly. Isn't it right there by the Mike Starnes Center where y'all set up your studio before every game?
Well, it's due west of Vaught Hemingway Stadium, in between the pavilion and Vaught Hemingway.
Okay,
and that's where we'll be pregame before every game. And we really enjoy doing that. You can also follow us at Brad Logan COTE on Twitter/X. That's where we'll post all of our. We do a podcast a couple of times a week. The Red and Blue Crew podcast. I do that with David Johnson, and also are in collaboration with Talk of Champions. That's of course the On3/Rival site, and that's at Rebel Grove. They just recently transitioned over from the Ole Miss Spirit to Rebel Grove, so I'm excited about the partnership I have with them.
That'll be huge. All right, we'll have to definitely get you back on again. You are one of the best and most prepared people we ever bring on this show. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
All righty. Coach, I want to go back to the stuff. And Brendan made a great point about, Kiffin, his persona. I'm telling you, I think I'm really good at reading a room and reading body language. I know my wife is. Lane Kiffin, man, he talked about what the community of Oxford, that town, has done for him. He has got my brother here, cousins, his daughter. He said Landry's at Ole Miss. His son Knox is there at the high school playing football. I don't see him going anywhere. I mean, I'm talking about as the program's going up, but there comes a point in life where, first off, people got to get over he was at Tennessee the 1 year. I mean, guys come and go, but the happier he is, the better coach he is, I think.
Yeah, that's a good point. Lane's done it at every level too. When he had to take the sabbatical and go to Alabama as an assistant, then he went to a smaller college at Florida Atlantic. I mean, and he still was successful. I think, I don't know. I mean, I don't know well enough. I knew Monty pretty well. We used to go visit a couple of times and talk defense, just thought the world of his dad. Mm-hmm. And losing a guy like that, not only was it his father, but he was sort of a mentor, as a football coach, obviously. And I think sometimes that could have a big effect. But he hadn't lost his personality, and a lot of times he could have, shut it off a little bit quicker than he did. But hey, we got a lot of folks in this business that do that.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes we don't have enough.
Yeah.
And coaches used to talk like that all the time 50 years ago, but things like we're on right now weren't in existence back then. So a lot of times people didn't know. They're tweeting it now, whereas they used to say it over a cup of coffee one morning in a hotel.
Yeah.
So, he's a good football coach, and if he's found something in life that's, all of a sudden turned the page for him, I'm happy for him.
Yeah. I'll tell you another coach who was markedly different. The contrast was spectacular. It was Billy Napier. I mean, he had looked like he had just had been embalmed some of the past few years. This year, he had color in his skin. He was excited. And I would be too if I had a team coming back and I had DJ Lagway as my quarterback. I think that's obviously that's a big deal, Coach. But
Yeah.
you've known Billy since he was 21. What is he, mid 40s, late? I don't know. He's a young guy, but he coaches with a lot of passion. Somebody talked about he's got two brothers, and one of them is coaching down in LaGrange, Georgia, home of the Grangers. Plow them up, Grangers.
Billy's 46, by the way.
Yeah, okay, 46. So he's a young guy, but I think he's really happy. And I saw the Gator spring football special, ran it again last night on SEC Network. And the Sean Kelly, the voice of Florida Gator football, who replaced Mick Hubert, the legend, talked about the synergy. Back in 06, Gators won the basketball national championship, and they won it in football in 06. And Sean Kelly asked Billy Napier, does that kind of raise the bar? And he goes, hell yeah, it does. Yeah. It's him right, it does.
Back to back, Rob.
Yeah, back to back.
It wasn't just 1-1.
Yeah, I mean, I know that, but in basketball, Vegas, baby. No, but basketball they did back to back. But in football, it was amazing to win it in basketball in April, and then do it again when they curb stomped Ohio State. Coach, being in that athletic building with all those other coaches, you got one mouse and there's a piece of cheese. He'll eat it when he feels like it. You put another one in there and throw a female in the middle of them, there ain't nothing left, is there?
That's a good analogy. But Billy, I never got to know him that well after he started coaching, but just having known his background and everything, he's never been a rah-rah guy. He's very much a methodical person and very intense. And he doesn't wear things on his sleeve. If you kind of watch him on the sideline, if things are going great or things are going bad, you don't see a whole lot of difference in Billy Napier.
Yeah.
But I think one of the things that's probably pulling on him, and I'm just guessing, is he works so hard and is so meticulous about things that when something isn't working, it kind of pulls on you more than somebody who's one of these, I guess, off the cuff guys or shoot from the hip. Yeah. So, I don't know. Maybe he hasn't, maybe he has, but I think they've kind of turned the corner. I think he's got his roster solidified. I think he's got a really good quarterback if he can keep him healthy. Yeah. I know he knows what the hell he's doing, coaching and recruiting. Yeah. May have made some coaching changes that have, got a little bit more cohesion in the room too. So I just think they're going to be really good this year. Really good in the SEC on that schedule. Could be 8 or 9 wins. But I think they're going to have a hell of a football team this year.
Yeah, and before we bring in Dave Bartoo, I want to say Perry Mason, man, what a great counselor. Is that you out there, counselor? Is that you? Remember that in Cape Fear, Robert De Niro? Counselor, is that you out there? Hey, Rob, how do you feel about Sark saying it was not about the NIL money at Texas? I thought that – I'm laughing here. I thought that was so disingenuous on his part to think anyone believed that Texas has ever recruited like they're in Florida. Well, I mean, Texas has some advantages, black gold, Texas tea, the oil. I mean, there's a lot of money there, but they've always recruited. Mac Brown, they called him Coach February. He recruited so well. But to say that NIL doesn't have anything to do with it is silly. I mean, I'll just say that. But look, let's bring in Dave Bartoo. Look at him outside, 40 miles north of Portland, the man who lives the ultimate life, lights out gummies. I mean, Coach, I call you Coach now. Dave, we got Coach Ellis Johnson, longtime coach in the SEC, and lot of knowledge. And when he comes back in, I want to get into these what his takeaways were from media days. And I think the toughest thing to do, guys, is look at body language, but you can certainly tell the coaches that are comfortable. And I go back to just our interactions with the players. Dave, you got a chance to watch SEC media days on the color TV. I know it's expensive, but the neighbors had the blinds pulled up and you've got a good pair of binoculars. So what you see out there from Atlanta last week that makes you think all is well and SEC dominance will just keep on keeping on, if that's possible?
I wouldn't call even last year SEC dominance, man. You know,
I didn't. It wasn't.
it certainly wasn't. And to me, media day is like preseason football. It's just pomp and circumstance. There's
Yeah.
nothing to it. There's just zero, absolutely zero to it. So now I enjoy listening to shows like your come on and trying to unravel the quotes from these guys. But you know as well as anybody, these are extraordinarily measured, and
Yeah.
media days is wonderful for classic coach speak.
Yeah.
So I don't think, unless you're a big fan of a team or you really hate a team, I don't think there's anything that you could really take away from it that is going to project what's going to happen either for a team or for the SEC this year.
Doesn't it feel like it's just turning into like what the NBA or NFL draft day turned into? It's just like made for TV. Like we're all so bored, we need some drama. So let's just SEC Media Days is a thing. I mean, it's the most scripted WWE event in the history of like time. So good point, Dave.
Right. Now I will. Okay, so here's a little nugget though. Okay, here's a little nugget. I did some research for this show yesterday. So what I did is I fed in all the win totals of SEC teams of the last 3 years. So 22, 23, 24. Okay. And then I fed in the results. And I asked, what is the pattern? And this was really interesting. Is the SEC is either overvalued by the books or they boost it knowing the fans are going to overbet it, because if you blindly bet every SEC team under over the last 3 years, you're profitable. So the conclusion is that either the books are overvaluing the SEC or they know the bettors will overvalue the SEC and they juice the lines. Notice this year, lines are down all across the board in the SEC. I think some of that, I think parity is really starting to set in the SEC in clear view now.
Well,
In
and I see you wearing an Oregon State University Beavers ball cap, and you're an Oregon Duck graduate. Wow. What does that say about the duality of man?
Oh, it says who pays the bills, baby. That's what it says. Who's it's CTC?
That's
who's
right.
cutting the check today? And just a reminder that while we have time, this month is National Tree Stand Safety Month. So get out there where there's still good lighting and get up in those trees and check out your stuff, guys.
Coach, you hit the mute. I think. Are you back?
Yeah, Dave, I'm here. I don't know, Dave.
Yeah. Go ahead, Coach, and respond to what he said. I think that's an interesting about these betting numbers. Yeah.
Yeah, and he kind of took words out of my mouth. I think it is the parity. I think it's the NIL and the portal. People shifting around, running all over the place. The SEC used to be the best recruiting conference, used to be the best developing conference, used to be able to keep those guys at least 3 years, and they probably were. But I think it's exactly right. All this losing depth and having players transfer out that are not going to wait their turn. A guy like Arch Manning is an exception to the rule. And I think probably if you did that across the board with a lot of conferences, you'd find that they're not as good as they were. It's certainly not at the top. There's more dispersion, if you will, of the talent.
Dave, what Coach just said about the parity, and we think about the guy that used to stick around for 3 years, like a Quinnen Williams at Alabama, out of Winona High School there in Birmingham. He's going to be at Indiana starting, or SMU, or Oregon State, and go Beavers. But that's something that we just got to get used to, and it's not going to change.
It is though, but to kind of build on what Coach was saying there, some things kind of just popped into my head as he was talking. Number one, with the parity, it's not just the parity; it's also I think the mental effort.
Yeah.
I think the focus. I'm waiting for people to start comparing like national champions now versus before. I think Alabama and Georgia and Clemson and LSU and Ohio State teams of 5, 10, 15 years ago would absolutely kick the crap out of any of these national championship champions going forward. So I think it's not just a parity. I think quality of football has gone down. My big warning sign that the quality is going down and there's too many transfers and guys aren't going to be developed. If it happens, it'll be when the NFL starts complaining that they're having to spend more time developing players. That'll be your canary in the mine shaft when the NFL starts complaining that all this moving around and all this money is affecting their product, the guys they're drafting. I think that will really signal maybe a change in letting guys move less and trying to stick them around more. So that is something I'm looking forward to years
That's a
down the
great
road right
point
now.
because I don't know if y'all even know what the 20-hour rule is, but when they put that in, I don't know, 15 or 20 years ago, they had a mandatory day off each week. They had hourly limits and so forth. Cut out having 2 days twice in a row. There have been cutbacks on how much you could work the players and how much you could meet with them and so forth. And NFL coaches said they could tell that there was a difference in the players that were coming into the league. Said, hell, they didn't know how to work. The ones that were coming in for that thing said that they couldn't sustain the focus and the concentrate, even meetings and stuff. They couldn't come in on time, get something out of the meeting, take it to the field, keep making the progress. They were having to coax them along and treat them like children, as opposed to 15 years earlier when the guys came out of these programs and they knew how to work. So you're right. Now, I will say this. I think the NFL is partially to blame for all this damn portal stuff. If they'd go ahead and change their rules to the NBA or the MLB and let kids that are 18 years old come out of high school come play, then they'd quit going to college and running all over the place for 3 years trying to get another $100,000. If you want to get paid, go to the pros. And I think that would cut out a bunch of that too, but they're not going to take them.
Yeah. Coach Dave, you start thinking about what I have heard this. Absolutely. I've heard this from some people. The NFL has already said the kids are woefully underdeveloped and unprepared. Also, I can tell you a discussion what one of my friends had with an orthopedic surgeon who oversees a lot of residents, medical school, the residents. He said they put them on those 36-hour, he wrote, shifts. He said they're bitching and whining and going to HR. He said, I'll chew some ass, if a kid goes into surgery, he's not prepared or something like that, and they get their feelings hurt. So if it's happening there, can you imagine in football, Dave? I mean, you work together. You've got a matrix, don't you? Going back to 2010 of every deer stand in America. No, I'm just looking where you are. I'm so relaxed. Right, we got Gator George in Portland watches this show every day, 40 miles up the road. You may run into my youngest son if you meet Maxwell Peanut Brown. He's in Sequoia National Park. He loves that part of the country where you are. I'm just relaxed watching it, but. Let's go back to that database that you have. Talk about that. This is Coach, this is what's fascinating. One of many things fascinating about David Bartoo.
Well, the database when we started the business, Matrix Analytical, myself and my co-founder, our goal was off-field analytics. All the attention goes to baseball on-field stuff. When it comes to football, people are talking about calling plays with analytics. I don't believe in analytics on the field in football in real time because it goes so fast. Situationally, sure. But what we started working on, and the first thing we did is we started grading coach outcomes. And we first started with head coaches. And so we came up with a grading system on head coaches in FBS. And then we expanded it to FCS. And then we expanded it to the NFL. And then we went with offense and defensive coordinators and special teams. And eventually we just went with every on-field guy in college football. So our database, if you said, Dave, I got $12 million for my staff. I'm in the SEC. I need to build a staff. What's the best way to spend that money on the highest quality value guys? And our goal is to reduce risk in staff building, and reduce risk in overpaying guys when building those staffs. And so that's the first thing that we did, and we've been doing it for 10 years. It's in the FBS, we're in the FCS, and we got into the NFL about 4 years ago. And that's really our bread and butter from an analytical standpoint.
How would you explain our good friend Ben Troop, who's a regular on this show and the Buddy Martin show, was an All-American at Florida, and Ben says that as a lifelong Falcons fan, he said, "It is in my will that when I pass, I'm going to have 6 Atlanta Falcons football players as my pallbearers." And I asked, "Why, Ben?" He said, "So they can let me down one last time." Why can't the Falcons ever get it right? I mean, I'm over in Atlanta all last week. And by the way, if you haven't been up in Brookhaven and seen the new children's hospital, Bernie Marcus, I think, put $500 or $600 million of his own money. I've never seen a children's hospital in my life like this. And Le Bonheur Children's Hospital in Memphis is amazing, but just you wonder, and they hardly ever take Georgia players or Auburn or Georgia Tech players. And by the way, I've got to ask you, this is a text from a friend of mine. Have you seen him?
Yeah.
Is he an Oregon fan or an Oregon State fan?
Oh, I'm Oregon alum, but I actually I work for Oregon State amongst.
No, what I'm saying, Bigfoot. I'm saying, who's Bigfoot a fan of?
Oh, Bigfoot. Oh, you know something? I keep believing, baby. Every time I go out, I keep believing. I'm like Jerry Glanville leaving tickets for Elvis, baby. Every time I go out, I'm like, well, you know something? Maybe today's the day.
Right there. See, it's on the set. I mean, right below Vanelli's Deli. But Dave, if you looking at the SEC from media days, and Coach has known Billy Napier since Billy was 21 years old. He's 46 now. He's got a couple of brothers coaching. His father, at the end of his life, was coaching from a wheelchair. I mean, that guy can flat out coach. I think he can. Who are some coaches you think that are catching a lot of grief in the SEC that you think have a lot of upside? And I'm going to add, I think Hugh Freeze went from looking like the defeated man the last 2 years to this year looking like, okay, my roster is better. And you can tell in his body language, he feels a lot more confident.
Well, let's start with the first caveat in the SEC. Everybody that isn't in the top 25 is immediately under undue pressure. There is no greater conference where expectations are out of control every year for so many programs, and they're almost impossible to meet. Arkansas, Mississippi State, South Carolina, Kentucky's a basketball school. I'm not sure if they care that much, but it's just so hard, even if you're a really good coach, to get traction in that conference. Who's really good? Well, who's really good that's getting undue pressure? Well, pressure is earned. That's part of the job. We all know that. I do feel that I don't know if Billy Napier is getting that much pressure right now after last year, the way it finished, and the expectations for this year. But I agree. I think Billy is very, very good. Who else is out there that pops into
Kalen
my head?
DeBoer?
Is he under that much pressure? Is that just stupid Alabama
Coaches
fans
served
running
2
their
tours
mouth?
at Alabama.
I mean,
there's pressure
on.
there, isn't there? There's pressure to eat.
Yeah, it doesn't matter, man. It's which is crazy because Nick Saban left Alabama because Nick Saban couldn't live up to old Nick Saban expectations. With the new NIL, he basically said, I can't run my program and my process as well as I used to. It's too hard. I'm out. So when Nick Saban quits because Nick Saban can't live up to his expectations, how does Kalen DeBoer or anybody live up to expectations in Tuscaloosa? Nearly impossible. Now, I do believe, but Alabama, I'm not sure what their win total
9,
was.
yeah.
I think it was 9. So that kind of tells you what the sports book think. I feel there was a much bigger upgrade. Probably the biggest upgrade in the SEC in terms of coordinator is getting Ryan Grubb back and moving off from Nick Sheridan. Nick Sheridan, for his career, has been a below average offensive coordinator. People catch up onto his stuff in November. And we saw Alabama struggle in November last year. I think bringing Grubb back, getting that part of the band together is really, really critical. But again, you are coming in. We all know when you come in after a legend, most of the time you're a dead man walking, right? It is so hard to do that at almost every stop. So I personally don't think he's under um, that much
Yeah.
scrutiny myself, because I still think he has time. I'm sure the fans are irritated. They're not projected to go 12-0. But the other one is probably Brian Kelly. On paper, he's had a great career. Toledo, Notre Dame. He's a good recruiter. He's won a lot of football games. He's been decent at hiring. I think right now, though, he's struggled on the hiring side. His offensive defensive coordinator combination with Joe Sloan and Blake is one of our bottom rated OCDC pairings. And I think that Brian is a really good head coach, but you're also talking about the program that has the third most starts in the NFL in the last 10 years. So the expectation should be there. I just don't think he's been able to figure out the staffing at LSU. And I think it's going to be another tough year unless Nussmeier is that guy
Yeah,
to
and
elevate the
Coach,
program.
last week we did a split show. I was on the first half, and then you and Buddy and Brendan closed out the second half because I had to get downstairs to media days. By the way, that would be a great band, OCDC. Oh yeah, ACDC. Just thought of that. But Coach, what he just said, and just you see Kalen DeBoer, he's used to winning. He's got more resources than ever. Is it sometimes a little bit overwhelming when you take a job like that? You've got everything you've needed, and you have to sort of kind of assimilate into that culture?
Yeah, in my opinion, it wasn't any more difficult than a lot of coaches move into and trying to change a philosophy, a system, and all this other stuff. And they had some casualties. A lot of kids took off when Nick did, but it's Alabama, so everything he does is under a microscope. If you win 9 games the first year you take over a program, that's not a bad job, except the guy before you was winning 11 and 12 every year. So, it's just a lot of factors there that you can't control. I do think I think they're going to get better and better because I think it's going to be more and more his program.
Yeah.
The quarterback last year, tremendous athlete, but to try to get him switched over to a different system. And I think at times you could see where they almost had him kind of handcuffed, not because they were trying to, but because he wasn't familiar with the system and he wasn't a natural fit for the system. And occasionally when he turned it loose and ran the ball a couple times out of the pocket and did some other things athletically, threw some 40-yard bombs and that type of thing. That's who he was. And that's not really what they were trying to get him to do.
Yeah.
But I think they're going to get better and better.
Yeah.
The guy that comes to mind on this question, though, to me is Brent Venables at Oklahoma. And I think Brent got dealt a tough hand. I'm a little bit partial. I like him, and I think he's a hell of a coach. But he stepped into a situation and I don't think the roster was that deep, and that I don't think he was very good. He also, I think they said last year all the offensive linemen were very young and they weren't very good. Then all the receivers got hurt, and I had a great quarterback who couldn't function because he didn't have any help. And he's addressed all that this season, and he's going to put his hands back on his defense. Be curious what Dave thinks about him as a defensive coordinator, because I tell you, he did a hell of a job at Clemson and Oklahoma.
Yeah.
And
top 3. Okay, so we started keeping records in 2010.
Yeah.
He's top
And I
three.
think that's going to help him.
He's top three. Kirby's number one. Kirby has 8 of the top 25 defenses, either at Alabama or Georgia, in the last 15 years. So Kirby's one, but Brent Venables is a national championship top tier defensive coordinator. And heck, you saw it last year. I think the biggest glimpse, if you're a Sooner fan, speaking of the Sooners, look what they did to Alabama. That was a top 10 scoring efficiency offense that went into Norman and just got mud stomped in Norman. So I think they'd figure out how to run the football more.
Yep.
Yeah. I want to say, too, we've got about 7 or 8 minutes to go. Real quick, hey, as you age in life, and everybody does every day, what do? Fight back. RumbleBoxingGym.com in Memphis at Union and McLean. Check them out. Ann Camp Lee, great friend of 30 years. By the way, folks, talk about good genes. Her mother is about to turn 100. She still duck hunts at the OK Duck Club over near Weiner, Arkansas at 100 years of age. And she bought a puppy. If that ain't optimism, I don't know what it is. But I love that woman, Gail Camp, man. Rumble Boxing Gym in Memphis. And David, can you dovetail off of what Coach said? And by the way, your internet's great. I don't know. You must have some like sat phone or something that you got for hunting, whatever. But when does elk season open out there, by the way?
September.
Okay.
September. It is. Yeah. So I don't in September, dude. I don't really watch. I'm in the woods 24/7 if I can during the month of September. So it's coming up. We got about 5 weeks right now. It's just like the football countdown, and it'll be ready to rip.
And David, before you go, and we're going to bring you back on again next week. This is incredible data. So what I meant was, Paul Feinbaum put that challenge out there. Is SEC dominance over? Certainly the last year there was not an elite team in this league. My top 5 in no particular order are Georgia, Texas, Alabama, Florida, and Texas A&M. Am I nuts?
Ooh, no, I like the A&M, Elko. Speaking another good DC, there's a very highly graded DC in Elko. And that's a guy that needed to take things back over. I think if he's calling the plays, A&M's a lot better. I think his choice at DC last year was subpar. And then you got year 2 of the offensive coordinator there at A&M. So, but look at what you just rattled off. You just rattled off 5 top 15 recruiters. Recruiting still wins. Okay. Recruiting still the most important thing. High school recruiting is still the most important thing. The second most important thing is probably coaching and coaching cohesion, having a really good quarterback if you don't have the recruiting. So, and we know Florida has that. So, nope, I got no issues with what you put out there with that. A lot of good staffs there, a lot of good players. So,
all right, real quick, Blind Squirrel Sports in Buena Vista, Georgia. Are you surprised that Alabama had 0 players voted on by the SEC media for the preseason poll? And also, off topic, Dave, are you in a deer stand? Just to clarify that, where are you? Just gotta know. This is Blind Squirrel Sports. He wants to know.
Look at that. First rule of hunting is you don't tell anybody where you're at. Everybody knows that, right? Right? The second rule is never take pictures with your guns because you don't want anybody to know you got it.
Yeah.
So, no, I had no idea that Alabama didn't have anybody voted on by the media on the first team, which I will say is a surprise.
Yeah.
Because I think the talent has been recruited there. Maybe just because of the churn, people are just unfamiliar with it. And media people also like to hedge their bet. So maybe they're thinking Alabama isn't going to be as good as, the media people are betting the under. So that is a surprise. But again, preseason, don't take anything away from it, man.
Gotcha. Hey, look, you got a great company. Let's talk about the gummies real quick and let people know how they can follow you. I've
Yeah.
tried them. My wife tries them. We use them. I haven't slept like this since I was a kid.
Yeah.
And I've got that 4 or 5 hour, they absolutely work. Just tell people about them, how they can order them.
Yeah, well, it's with a collaboration with the NFL. Developed these sleep gummies through our hemp farming out here in Oregon, and the goal was is to basically have a natural way to knock yourself out at night. Because man, there's a lot of people that don't sleep very well, especially NFL alumni. So if you go to hempforpros.com and look up Lights Out gummies or Liquid Lights Out, both of them are highly effective at helping you get to sleep quickly and stay so that you and your wife both know how potent these are,
Yeah.
but how great you feel in the morning as well with no hangover.
Well, I don't fall asleep during the day. As anyone that knows me, and my father is a confirmed narcoleptic, I'm telling you, I don't doze off during the day. It happened overnight, immediately. And it used to be I would swim during lunch, go back on the trading floor right after the market closed. I'm slumped over, in a nap. But these things work. I would recommend them. Look, Lights Out gummies. Dave, let's do it again next week. I think the coolest thing about it is you make people think and get out of their comfort zone. Live from an undisclosed location somewhere in the mountains of Oregon. Bigfoot, if you see him, bring him on next time, okay?
Thank
Not
you,
here.
Rob. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much, man. Appreciate it. I love this guy, Coach. One of a kind. You just don't have guests that come in from the deer stand like this very often. So, I mean, it's pretty darn cool. So before we close out, get out today and support our sponsors like the Pro Athletes Hemp Association, Lights Out Gummies. Blessed to have sponsors. Dave is an amazing wealth of knowledge, Coach, to tap into his brain, as are you. Just I thought that was having the two of y'all on here together. Iron sharpens iron. It definitely happens. Coach, I tell you, your ability to pivot and your knowledge, I don't know and I know you work out regularly. That's why your brain, it works the way that it does. But this was a fantastic discussion. Hey, Winter Timber opening in that store first week of August, University Drive in Auburn, Alabama. Landers Ford, Memphis.com, Poplar and Houston Levy, $500 off for SEC Sidelines audience members. Get out there, cars, trucks, SUVs. They've got the Robin Egg Blue Bronco Retro with the white walls on the wheels. They got that. Oh, man, that's a great-looking Bronco. The F-150s, the sedans, SUVs, the 25 Expeditions are in. Landers, why? Because they are committed to the customer experience in the service department. Fantastic. Picks you up. Open every day of the week, 7 a.m., 7 p.m., except Sunday. And Hewlett and Dunn, Boot and Clothing Company. I'll be out there later today on the historic square in Collierville, Tennessee. Barber, Filson, over 7,000 pairs of men's and women's boots. Raven, Charles Hall, JM, Lydia, Squidward, the whole crew. And they've got the fall fashions will start coming in later in August. And they got you covered for the outdoor life on the historic square. HewlettandDunn.com. Okay. Coach, fantastic. Thank you for sharing your time with us. Everybody watching, glad to be back with you. We were out last week all over the place in Atlanta putting up stuff, but we'll be back tomorrow morning, and stay tuned to this channel at all times. Hey, most often we see the face of Christ in the least among us. We're the most blessed people in the greatest country in the history of the world. Find ways you can help other people. Don't give to give. As Jay Evers says, give to give. We'll see you tomorrow. Good night, John.